Thank you, Acting President. This seems to happen all the time, but this is probably the last time, so thank you for giving me the call. Now, I rise right now because there's still 15 minutes to go on this, and the first valedictory of the season will happen at 12:30, and I didn't want the time to pass and have to start too early. So here I am. This is a subject I could talk about for an hour in here. I am delighted to have this motion moved in here, and it just filled me with joy for the first time ever in 4 years in this room to hear everyone saying such wonderful things about regenerative agriculture. I feel that we have moved on. I feel that there has been a change, and I am delighted because there is so much more knowledge in this room on that issue. And given the benefits of getting carbon into the soil is now acknowledged. And I know that the difficulty comes in measuring it, but that's no reason to set it aside or say it's a great idea, however, we can't because we can't measure it. It's a reason to find. No, of course you wouldn't be. You're in a position of leadership now, and I really want to see you move forward with that because you understand this situation, and maybe you'll even help to find ways to measure that carbon in the soil so that we can move on with that. It's just blows me away. I'm really pleased to hear it. Pastoral areas too. Delighted. Yes, we have to give them other opportunities than just having animals in pastoral leases. Of course we do. They've been telling this for years. It's not working. The stocking rates we originally had when we first opened up those areas have been diminishing year after year, decade after decade, because the plants are not there to feed the stock. And also by putting the watering points out there, what do? We increase the kangaroo numbers, and you have more kangaroos, then there's more room for dingoes to live out there. We are putting pressure on these pastoral areas, not just from our own stocking rates, but from the native animals that are out there, from the feral animals that are out there. And if we don't go out there and start controlling those feral animals as well, and that does not mean the dingoes. The dingoes keep the kangaroo population down. We've got to do that to allow these landscapes to rehabilitate, for the plants to come back, so that we can have the opportunity to graze cattle there when conditions are right. You know, this isn't rocket science. This is known by the people who live there. This is known by some of the people who live there, but they want to get out of it what they can right now, so they're keeping their stocking rates well above what they're supposed to. And what is it doing? It's degrading the landscape further. And what are we doing? Well, it's their lease, it's their land, it's their right. It's not their right. The landscape belongs to all of us. And if people are degrading it, then they should be held accountable. That should be in the leases to make sure that they do manage that appropriately. Now, I also wanted to just talk about cattle. I think cattle around the world are getting a bit of a bad rap, it seems. Cattle, yes, cattle through their burping, for the most part, let out a lot of methane, particularly when they are in feedlots, something that we don't have the practice of doing here so much. The practice for raising cattle here is still on grass pastures, other than the last 3 months or so before they're slaughtered. And when they're on the grass pastures, the methane is not so much a problem. So when you start quoting statistics about methane and the issues from cattle, please look at Australian statistics for it, not necessarily the global statistics for it. Because cattle are a part of our system. That manure that they put out, whether it was 50 kilos a day or something, that manure is fertilizer. That manure is energy. That manure is something we should be using. Not saying, oh, what a problem. It's you know, the circular economy, the idea that we can use one of the leftover materials or whatever, what we call waste traditionally, from one process to put it back into another system to make it useful. That's intelligence. And you know, humans have intelligence. We just have to get behind them and let them do it. I was delighted to hear about the Voss Water System Task Force that the Honourable Sally Talbot chairs. I think I came too late to the party on that one to realize that it existed and that it was doing things. But you know, I come from the Southwest, from the Albany area, where we've been doing these sort of things for 30 years. Our oyster harbor is now world-renowned, and get this, for having oysters. You know, go back, we now have the natural oysters that were occurring there are being replenished and restocked, plus 2 oyster farms, including one by the Twiggy Forest, and also mussels. You know, this is what can happen when communities push and encourage and coerce and force and do whatever they can to get governments to support their activities, to clean up the messes that have been made by previous people and corporations who have tried to extract every dollar they can. So I'm delighted to hear that that's going on. And then also, although I'll probably do a member statement on this, saw logs, I just want to mention to the Honourable Steve Thomas, yes, there are some saw logs that are cut and then used for purposes that last for 100 years or longer. We can find them in our buildings, in Europe going back several hundred years. But our native forests currently, more than 80% goes to charcoal, chips, firewood, and waste. That leaves less than 20% for sawn timber. And even of that 20%, when we're building construction now, a lot of our things that we're constructing are only built to last 30 years. But I wholly support the idea of carbon sequestration into plantations. And you'll hear more about that shortly. Because we need to draw down that carbon. And I think it's fantastic that now pastoral leases can also do carbon farming. I think there's so much more to be explored here, and it just, like I said, puts a smile on my face to know that so many people in here understand and have been willingly speaking about it positively. I'm delighted that the minister is a strong proponent of this. I think her work has even influenced the Department of Primary Industries and Regional Development. And I'm just looking forward to so much more coming out of that. Because even our universities, I think, are saying the right words more and more often. And if we've got young students, if we can get it into our ag schools, if our ag schools start realizing that, as the Honourable Colin de Grusa was saying, keeping the moisture in the soil, using cover crops, not plowing and churning it up and letting it blow away. If the positive things are being taught in our ag schools, then those students go to universities, they're going to demand to continue that sort of study, that sort of research, so that they can actually increase the soil content. Because, we started in West Australia, you clear a native bush and you've got between, say, 3 and 7% soil. Then you plow that and farm it for 30 or 50 years using heavy concentrated chemicals put into it. And you can bring that down to 1 to 2% carbon pretty quickly. But the thing is, there are people around this state who are putting the carbon back in. And you can put it back in at 1 or 2% per year. Now, I don't know what the maximum we'll ever get here. I mean, I grew up in the lush fields of Illinois where topsoil is 2 meters thick. That's what I knew, that black, rich earth. Whereas here you get dirty sand, and we need a lot more carbon in there. And I think, I have hope. I think we might get there. So that's it for now.